Alright, so can you guys see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this this was the question, and we are going to try to solve this question, and explain some of the input and also some things about forms. So I'll be switching the views. Okay, so I'm going to open a new collab um, notebook and try to solve it. So the question is, you are supposed to write a Python code to find the area and perimeter of any triangle if we are given the sides. And so these are the formulas for perimeter, area, and the area has a s parameter inside, which is given by the average of the perimeter. So we are supposed to test our code on a triangle with size 3, 4, and 5 centimeters. Okay, so we could just assign um, the size. So you can say A is 3, B is 4, and C is 5. And we can say the perimeter is A plus B plus C. And the S is equal to the perimeter divided by 2. And we can find the area now using the formula that we have here. So the area is just the square root. So the square root, if you don't know how to do square root, for mathematics, square root is just anything raised to the power 1/2. So you can raise something to the power using this expression here. So to raise something to the power or exponent, you use double asterisk. So this is how you raise something to the power. So for example, if I wanted to find 2 raised to the power 3, this is what I would do. So this is 2 raised to the power 3. If I run this, I'll get 8. So in Python, to do exponent, you use 2 asterisk signs. There are different ways that you can do the square root. This is one, and I'll show you another one. So I'm going to raise this to the power 1/2. Then everything that will be inside this bracket is what will be under the square root sign here. So we have s times s minus a times s minus b times.
Please, you've already defined A.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I should call this area. Thank you. S minus c. Okay, so this is the expression we have under the square root. So all of this raised to the power 1/2 is what we have. Another way that you could use the square root sign is using the math model. But the module, we've not talked about the module yet, so I'm not going to introduce that here yet. So then we can print the perimeter, and also we can print the area. So if we run this, we should have these values here. Now, another way that you could assign the values to this to the size of the triangle is using inputs. What that means is that every time you run this cell, the cell is going to ask you to enter the values for the 3 sides of the triangle. So there is an input function. So this function basically what it does is that it will ask the user to enter a value. You can add a comment to the input statement that will appear. So I'll show you what I mean. So when I run this code, you see that there is a statement here saying enter A, and there is a field that has been prepared for me to enter the value of A. That is what the input function does. And the message that I'm having here is just what has been appended to the field where I'll input the value of A. So that is what the input function does. So after I've entered the value of A, to ask for the value of B, and to ask for the value of C. I hope that is clear. Okay, so when you do this, let me put in the value of A, which is going to be 3. I'll hit enter. It will ask me for the value of B, which will be 4. And it will ask me for the value of C, which will be 5. So when I do that, it will run the rest of the code, and I will have an error. So the reason why this is an error is because it said cannot concatenate string. Whenever you use the input function, anything that you type into the input box is going to be a string. So the value that you put for A, which is 3, is a string value, it's not an integer value or a float. So when the program reaches the line 8, it's going to be adding 3 strings, and that is not going to be an integer to be used on the subsequent lines. So how do you convert data types? So for example, we have A to be equal to 3, this is a string, and B to be equal to 4, and C to be equal to 5. How do we convert a string into an integer? What you do is to call the integer function. If you want to convert a string to a floating point or a decimal, you call the float function. If you want to convert it to any other data type that we talked about, all you have to do is to call the name of um, the data type, and then you put in the value that you want to convert. So for example, if I want to convert A into an integer, all I'll have to do is to put in A here. And if I run this, I should see that A is an integer. I can tell you because it is not it's not enclosed in between 2 quotation marks. So this is an integer. I could convert it into a floating point by also doing a float. So the float, like we said, is any integer with the decimal part.
Please, I want to ask that question briefly. Can you be like some when you know that like the values you give, the size of the triangle, you know they are integers because it's a whole number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought maybe can just you can just define the A as an integer and then input the comment like we code in the comment.
Okay, no, you can't, because of the way the input function works, you can't do that. The input function only accepts strings. So the moment you start using the input function, everything that you put inside the field that will be provided for you to type your answer, it will be a string. So it's after you've taken the value that you convert it into the data type that you prefer. I don't
Oh,
know if I've
okay.
answered your question.
Like I was saying that okay, so let me say the code. Let's say I'll be like A is an integer, which is A is equal to int, and then in brackets you input the function and the string.
Yeah, yeah, I was getting to that. Yes, so you can do this. So I was actually getting to this. So this is how you are going to convert the input that you take. So the way Python works is it works from the inside of the bracket to the outside, just like how mathematics works. So the input function will be executed first, then the value that you take will be converted into an integer because of the integer function that is enclosing the input function. Is that what you were trying to say? Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, please.
Okay. So one thing you should understand is that you can't convert every data type into any data type that you want. For example, if I have a variable that is equal to, let's say, somebody's name, and you want to convert this name into an integer, it's not possible. This name cannot be converted into any number. So if you try doing this, Python will give you an error because there is no number associated with this string here. So although you can convert from one data type to another, there is some limit to it because not every data can be converted from one data type to the other. So if you want to go with this way, and you know that the values that you are going to take are going to be only integers, then you can use the integer function. But if you don't know and you would like to cover any number, I would prefer that you use the float function so that when the number is going to be a decimal to this also can be converted. So with this, if I run this code again, I'll be asked to enter the value of A again. For B, okay, what sorry, I think I made an error by not putting the inputs. I actually edited the input instead of adding the float function. So let me correct it. This will be B, and then this is C. So A will be 3, and B will be 4, and C will be 5. So if I do that now, then I'll have the value that I'll. The reason why people prefer this is because every time you run the code will ask you to enter a value. So somebody who doesn't know how to program will not have to change any part of the code. The only thing that the person will have to do is to just click on the play button, and then the code will start running by itself. So it's very straightforward. Enter a value and then you edit. So that's why most people like using this method. I hope the input and then changing of data types is clear enough. We will encounter more of this, so I just want to see if you understand this for now. Are we okay?
Yes,
Alright, so about the form. So this is the second way of taking inputs. Another way that you could take input is using user forms. So this is I'm going to clear all these.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, sorry. I have a question. Why do you still have line 5 and line 6
Yeah, yeah,
having
yeah,
no?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, so I should have deleted that. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so this is the second method of taking inputs. We'll talk about the third method by using user form. So I'm going to clear these three variables here. So again, to add user forms, the cell has to be a code cell. So because you're already working inside a code cell, that is fine. We are going to click on the three option buttons here, and then we'll select add a form. straightforward. So if you add a form, you see that just a default title of the form will be appended. The code here, so if you click on the add the form button, this is what the code that will be added. It is this code that is producing the header that you are seeing here. So you can either edit the header from here, or you can edit it by editing the code that was given. So I'm just going to call this um, area, maybe end. I'm just giving it a title, perimeter. So after you've added a form, we are going to add form fields. So the form field is where we are going to add get the inputs from the user form. So again, you go to the three dotted buttons here, and then you go to the form option and click on add a form field. So the form field is where the user will input the values. So the field type is going to be input, because we want to take inputs from the user. It's not going to be a drop down or a slider or any other thing. We want it to be an input, so we leave it on input. Then the variable name, for the sake of the exercise, we'll call it A. Okay, and the variable type is not going to be a string, it's going to be a float or an integer. But we don't have float or integer here, we have number here. Colab did this thing by renaming the float to number, so we will select the number data type. You can decide to give a placeholder, but we don't need that for now, so we can save that. So if we save that, you see that the variable A and then the field where you would like to enter the value has been provided. The code for this form field is what you are seeing here. Okay, so we are going to add the two other fields for A, for B, and C. You will go through the same process. Okay, so with that done, we can hide the code. We just want to see just the forms, so we can hide the code by clicking the hide the code button. So now we can enter the value for A, B, and then C. Then after doing that, we just run the code, and then we'll have our values 12 and 6. So that is the user form method. I hope that is clear. If you have any question, please go ahead and ask. So we've taken the values, and then we are using those values to make our calculations. Is that simple? Any question? Okay, so if there's no question, then I think that should be it for the forms, and then the and then the and then the and then the type conversions. Okay, so today we have a very short session. It's not too long. We are just going to build on what we did the last time. Okay, so let's begin. We are going to start with a question, and we would like to solve the question. All right. So it says that 10 beds with equal width and length of 5,000 centimeters are subjected to flow. I've not added the image yet. we are supposed to calculate the average permeability of the system. Okay. So the height of each of those 10 beds is what has been listed here, and the individual permeabilities of each of those 10 beds is what has been listed here. To find the average of the entire system, the average permeability of the entire system is the equation that we have here. Again, the equation, what it means is we are multiplying each of the height and then the perimeter of, sorry, the permeability of each system. We are multiplying them, and then we'll find the sum of the product. So multiply 1000 by 50, add that to the 1500, and the product of the 1500 and 100, multiply each of the values, and then we'll find the sum of those. And then we divide those sum of products by the sum of the heights. So they're basically trying to find the formula that we have here. So how do we do that? From the previous exercise, we could do this by listing the height individually, but that is going to be very long. Why I say that so is because if I say H1 is going to be 1000, H2 is going to be 1500, I'll have to do this all the way to 10, and that will be too much. And I have to do it for permeability also. There has to be a better way to be able to store all these values in one object. So the object that we'll be using is called a list. So a list is just a collection of homogeneous items or items of the same type. So instead of writing the heights individually, H1, H2, and H3, I could create just one object and store all the values as a list. So like this. So this is one object or one list that I have stored the values in it. To create a list, like you are seeing here, you just use square brackets, and you list the values separated by commas. So this is what we call a list. Then we can do the same for the permeability as well. Okay, so this is um, the values listed in one object. But the issue now is, because we have the values as one object, we can't multiply k and h, because if I try doing k times h, it's not going to multiply the individual values. There is no instruction in Python for that. So if I do this, all I'll get is sorry, I should have run the first cell first. Yeah. So let me run this and then try multiplying them. If I do that, it says cannot multiply sequence by a non-integer type list. You can't multiply two lists. It's not possible. So how do we multiply these values? Because we need the multiplication, then after that we need to find the sum of the products. So how do we do that? So this is where we are going to be talking about Python modules. So a Python module is just a file containing Python code. Usually it's written by somebody else or a group of researchers that we can import to use. So now that we can multiply two lists, there is a Python module that has been written that we can perform mathematical operations on lists, and that module is called the math module. You can get more information on this math module using the link here. So this is the official website or the Python website for the math module, and all the functions that you can use on lists or a combination of lists and integers are written here. Okay. So what do we want to do? We want to multiply these two lists, and after that we want to find the sum of the products. And in the math module, there's a specific function for that. When you scroll down, you can take your time and read it, read the functions on your own. But there is a function here called sum prod or summation production. Uh, uh, Summation product. So it finds the sum of the product of two I travels, and I travel is just a list. So if we have two lists P and Q, it will find the product of the two lists and then find the sum of the product. Basically the numerator of this equation. So we are going to define our list and then import the math module to be able to use it. Because it has been written by somebody else, we will have to import it to be able to use it. So first, we import the math module. All you have to do is to specify the name of the module, and that will be it. Then we list the our object. I'm just going to copy the two objects that we've created, and we paste that. So then we can find the numerator, the summation of the products of k and h. I'm going to call that kh by calling the math module dot. So any if you want to reference any of the functions in the math module, all you have to do is to call the math dot followed by the name of the function you want to use. So in this case, I want to use the sum prod function, and then it will be on both h and k. So I'm going to print uh, this to see what value I have. So this is what we have for the numerator. Then we can find the sum of the heights, which is the denominator of the equation. Again, you can go and look for how you can find the sum of a list under the math function. So this is what we have here. The f sum is what finds the sum of values in a list. So we'll use the f sum to do that. Then we can find the average variability by dividing the two, and then we can print the average variability. Any question with this? I know I've sped up a bit, so if you have any question, please let me know. If you want me to go over it again too, that would be fine.
No, please, I have a question. And please, with the summation production function, which is the math module,
Yeah.
please, I want to ask a question. I tried to use that one to calculate for the area in the perimeter, and then I define the list. Since they are all the size of the triangle,
Okay.
they are homogeneous.
Yeah.
So I place them in the list brackets,
Mm-hmm.
and then I want to ask a question. In calculating for the area, I tried like using the the values I defined in the list,
Okay. So
and then
if you do that, if you use the sum prod again, it finds the sum of the product of two lists. That is not what we have for calculating the area here. This is just
no,
finding.
I use math dot square root.
Okay, okay,
That's the
okay.
spread.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
I used that, and then I realized I was getting an error. They said I haven't defined my a value in the area, and then I realized that I did put in the list. So does it mean that whenever there are there are sizes that you're supposed to define, are you supposed to like write define that one again before you have a list?
Do
Is
you
that getting my question?
no? Do you still have the notebook available that we can see, or you've already
No,
corrected?
yes, I corrected it because, and then I want to really understand what I'm doing.
Okay. So I don't really get what you are trying to say, but
Yeah,
with the functions, to be able to use the function, you need to have a list, or at least you need to have the list defined. So if I don't have this h and k defined and I'm still trying to use them, I'll get an error. I don't know if that
Okay.
is what you're trying to say, because if
That
I
means
don't if I don't have h and k, or if I didn't, let's say for example I wrote h and k in a different cell and I didn't run it, and now I'm writing this matprod function in another cell and I'm running it, the
mm,
the um, the Colab interpreter doesn't know what h and k is, so it will give you an error. But again, like I said, all those issues that you were having, you could have just posted it to the group and I could have helped you. But
yes,
if
yes.
since you've already corrected it, or if you haven't run into any other issue, please send it to the group. And most of you guys, you send a message straight to me. Please just send it to the group so that other people can also learn from it.
Yes, please.
Okay. Please, any other question? So everybody is okay with this. Okay. So now that we have our average permeability, the question is in two parts. I decided to skip the second part because we didn't need that. After we've calculated the average permeability value, we're supposed to put that inside this equation to find Q. Q is what we call the flow rate. The other parameters have been given, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so A is just the cross-sectional area, and the image we have it here. So A is the area where the flow is, the cross-sectional area of the system that the flow is interacting with, and that's going to be this part. We have the width, but we don't have the total height. We just have the individual heights. So we can um, multiply the, we have to at least define the width first. So we have the width to be 5,000 centimeters. The first pressure P1, because we need P1 and P2 in the equation. So that is what has been given here. We have the P1 and P2 values. 2000, P2 to be the 190, 90, 90. We have our mu to be 2. We have our length to be also 5,000. So now we can calculate the area, which is going to be the width times the total height. And we've already found the sum of the total heights here, so we can just use that. Okay. Now we can find our Q using the equation that we have. So using this equation, this is what we have here. So now we can raise the value of Q. Simple. Okay. So like I said, today's lecture is just talking about the math module, and it's very short because there are a lot of functions here. I'll give you time to go and look at how they work and practice with them. With that said, we have about 30 minutes more to go. So this is the exercise that I have for you. You've already solved this in the previous exercise, but since now you've learned about the math module, you are required to use the math module to solve this problem. Yeah, so that is it for today.